As Donald Trump appears to be approaching his second criminal indictment in as many months, his allies in Congress are desperately trying to counter with their own scandal about President Joe Biden. Now, so far, I have to say, they have come up shockingly empty, which is why they've tried to craft this big mystery about this unsubstantiated, unverified complaint to the FBI, which they claim proves Biden and his family took bribes from foreign governments.
At issue is this 1023 form that an FBI whistleblower made you aware of that talks about specific actions Joe Biden may have taken in exchange for money?
That's exactly right.
I mean, this is unbelievable. This is corruption on a scale we've never seen in the history of our country.
This just isn't a document that's in the possession of the FBI. This is a document they created, and they created it based on what Jamie Comer just said. They had a credible source, one of their good sources.
Okay, so they have this document, right? The document, the magical document. House Republicans are planning to vote on Thursday to hold FBI Director Chris Wray in contempt of Congress for declining to turn over the magical document. Except here's the thing. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer has already seen the document in question. So has ranking Democrat Jamie Raskin, which is how we know this whole controversy, which Republicans are touting as a massive new scandal, is apparently, wait for it, the same tired Burisma conspiracy theory that Rudy Giuliani got Trump impeached over back in 2020. The one that Trump Attorney General Bill Barr, of all people, determined was not worth pursuing. Congressman Dan Goldman is a Democrat in New York who sits on the House Oversight Committee, and he joins me now. Congressman, you know, it's easier to write the first act of mysteries, the first few episodes of a season, than the latter ones when you got to tie up the loose ends. You know, pointing to something and saying there's something of nefarious afoot is easier than saying what the thing is. In this case, they have gotten a lot of mileage of pointing to this document as if there's some bombshell contained within. What do we know about what is in there?
Well, my understanding is that there is information provided by an FBI source who has been credible but has no firsthand information. So this FBI source is reporting information to the FBI that was provided to the source from somebody else. Now, that relates to the completely debunked and false allegations about some sort of corruption related to then Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden, who was on the board of Burisma. Now, you will remember, Chris, because I know you studied it well, that the impeachment investigation, 17 witnesses, experts, former ambassadors, Ukraine experts, said that what Joe Biden was doing in Ukraine, in urging Ukraine to remove their prosecutor general, was done consistent with U.S. policy because this prosecutor general was not investigating corruption, including at countries like Burisma. So what Biden was doing would actually have hurt Burisma if it were to play out. This is complete garbage. And if you don't have to take my word for it, because the Trump DOJ, as you just said, looked into this specific document and they determined that it was not worth pursuing these allegations. This is a complete nothing burger that they are trying to launder through official committees of Congress once again in order to politically harm President Biden. There is nothing here. There is no merit to any of this, and there is no reason to pursue a contempt of Congress charge.
I just knew that. I thought there was going to be a new bit. Like, they're talking about the document. I'm like, oh, I'm kind of curious. You know, what's the allegation here? But it's just the Burisma stuff again. Really? We're back. I genuinely sort of flabbergasted and a little disappointed. Just again, sort of from a narrative perspective, that there was nothing new here. To the point about the Department of Justice, again, this isn't correct me if I'm wrong in the facts here. It's not just the Trump Justice Department. It's William Barr, right? In 2020, his Justice Department?
You'll recall early in 2020, because Rudy Giuliani kept feeding him this information that Giuliani was getting from corrupt Ukrainian officials and Russian spies, intelligence assets. He was giving them to every administration agency there was, the State Department, DOJ. So Bill Barr assigned the U.S. attorney in the Western District of Pennsylvania to review all of this information and decide whether there should be an investigation. He declined to pursue an investigation. That was done all before Joe Biden became president.
There does seem to me some groundwork being laid on the part of members of Congress and the Republican Party to sort of go after Garland, the current U.S. Attorney General, if there are, in fact, charges against Donald Trump. And I want to just play you something Ted Cruz said. This in the last few days, you got Jim Jordan writing a letter to Merrick Garland saying he's demanding a memo of the scope of Jack Smith. He wants to see that. And here's what Ted Cruz had to say about the Department of Justice. Take a listen.
He has corrupted the Department of Justice. He has corrupted the FBI. He has corrupted the machinery of government, and they're perfectly willing to use it. It is effectively an arm of the DNC. The hypocrisy is massive. And mark my words, I believe Merrick Garland will indict Donald Trump. He wants to indict Donald Trump because he hates Donald Trump. He hates him. He's angry. Merrick Garland is angry that he wasn't confirmed to the Supreme Court. He wants to indict him.
What do you think this augurs about what will happen and how congressional Republicans will try to use their power should there be an indictment?
Well, look, we're seeing it with this contempt motion against the FBI director, Christopher Wray, who substantially complied with the subpoena, unlike many of the House Republican members last Congress. And what they are trying to do, and they've consistently been trying to do that over the past few months, is undermine the credibility of the FBI and the Department of Justice, because they are acting as the taxpayer-funded defense attorneys for Donald Trump. If they can undermine the credibility of the institutions that may charge Donald Trump with the crime, then they have a better defense for Donald Trump in the court of public opinion. That defense is irrelevant in the court of law and in any case that comes down the road. But in the court of public opinion, they can claim that Donald Trump is the victim of this mass conspiracy where you have one of the most dignified judges for 20 years, who's now our attorney general and has never taken a view on Donald Trump, and they'll spout this BS all over Fox News.
The unluckiest guy in the world, Donald Trump, cannot catch a break, just running up against just so many people out for him all the time. Congressman Dan Goldman, thank you very much.